We spent, through this planning process, we also did look at other property in the village, just on a, what I would call a map basis. And from an emergency response standpoint, you just don't want to go anywhere. If you're in the wrong place, we are looking to be in the right place to balance out our response times. As you probably are well aware, we're sort of in the middle of the village here, and this station does respond not just to Shorewood but other communities, and they have primary response area in Glendale and Whitefish Bay. From open property, which is very limited, and there's two issues: one, vacant property; two, do you want it it's off the tax roll property if it becomes a government-related building; and then three, some of the property it has potential future use that is in the long-range plan, whether that's in Shorewood or Whitefish Bay. And there's just got to be discussion of what that use is. So, from a response standpoint, this location is really good for us. We pretty much hit our average response time goal is 6 minutes. We hit, for this area that they cover, 5 minutes and 9 seconds is our average. And we look to hit 90% of the calls under 7 minutes. And we do that in this area from this station. So location is good. You have a building though that is half vacant, probably doesn't have much use for village operations, and from the fire department's perspective, has seen its better days and really doesn't meet the ability or need to put a current day operation in that building. It was originally built in 1929. We are upstairs a little bit, downstairs, and then there's a space in the middle of us. And from a standpoint of even remodeling the building to make half of it not useful, it's going to be a challenge according to the architects and the consultant that we have. So we have been discussing with them how do we move forward. We've been discussing a little briefly with village staff. How do we move forward? How does this fit into the village plans? And that's where we're at really right now. The building has use, or the space has, property has use for us. And so I think there needs to be, or there will be hopefully, a discussion about how does that look as far as does that building remain, or the property remain under the village? The village want to potentially sell the property to the fire department, since you don't have it, at this point I'm not aware of a use for the building or the property. And then how do we then move forward with bringing that facility up to what I would call current day standards for a fire EMS station? Because at this point we have some significant issues in the building. And I know there's, just as recently as we have, there's a boiler issue. The boiler there was 3 options laid out: a short-term, a long-term, and a don't fix option, and the long-term fix is a significant cost. So at what, how much money do you keep investing in it as the owner, I think is an issue that the board has to take into.
And just for the board's information on that issue with the boiler, we chose to purchase a part to help that boiler function for about $5,000, which we can also remove from the facility and for use in another facility if need be. But these will continue to add up. And not only that, but we currently don't have any employees within the scope of that building right now. So the utility cost and all those other things will continue to. So the timing is right to have the discussion, and so I think.
Yeah.
So what's our? Just remind everybody what the rent is that.
So the rent is based on a square foot number, and we pay about $66,000 this year. I believe it's right in that range.
The fire department pays.
We pay the village on tier for the rent of the space. We
pay half that Whitefish Bay.
Yeah, so we have a somewhat similar square footage of Whitefish Bay, so it's right around that number. It's within a couple $1,000 of that number.
Okay. Just
I tried to break that down, so it's about 5,420 a month.
Probably, yeah.
Okay, and if you divide that by 9,000 square feet, it's about 50 cents a square foot.
No,
Susie boiler.
seven, yeah.
$7.30.
Yeah, somewhere right around there, yeah,
Pretty reasonable.
Close.
yeah,
See why I need that.
But it,
right. So the rental, so the rate for rent, just so we all understand how that was set prior to any of us being here. It was set in the 1995 Fire Service North Shore Agreement that created the department. They had a square footage amount per square foot of rented facility, and it was indexed to, at one point it was indexed to a CPI factor, and then at some point it changed to mirror the increase in our annual operating budget. So in other words, if the municipalities with the 2% increase in the annual operating budget, the rent went up 2%.
So my question is, which I didn't ask before the police station, so I'm going to try to remember and not do the same mistakes that I did before. My assumption is you budgeted, it said in your long-range, or you adopted your long-range financial plan at 3.8 million, is that right?
So that's what we used as a number in the plan. We
Okay.
don't, it's a placeholder.
And it would be for the construction.
Construction and potential acquisition of property.
Okay, so that includes acquisition, that was one of my questions, okay. And then it talks about in the memo about an assessment that might be done. I would like to understand whenever from staff, when we're moving forward with an assessment of value, how that's calculated. I've been working with Mark to try to understand that better for commercial properties, which it may be if it didn't go to the fire department. And then I would like a good understanding, and I don't have it yet, of, I'm assuming that then right now your rent's pretty low for the space that you occupy. And if you take out this debt to buy and build a new building, then you have monthly payments for it. And so I would like to understand what increase we will, you know what I'm saying? Like, how does that affect all the 7 jurisdictions? And you don't have to tell me the exact amount for the other 6, but I'm assuming then we lose the rental income, although we would have a sale price, and then we would be, I'm assuming you're taking on that debt as an end part of that conglomeration, and what is that number? It's almost like a rent payment, but it's a mortgage payment.
Right. So this is very preliminary, because we are still trying to navigate through the waters of, we have 2 other facilities that also in the long-range plan were identified in Q1. So we have, as an organization, because we are not a taxing entity, we cannot take out long bonds.
Right.
We can do
Well,
bank
that's what I'm
borrowing, but we can do bonds. So prior to, in 2003, I think it is, Bayside did a bond issuance for the North Shore, and then Whitefish Bay did one late 90s, I think it is. That debt, then, how that's structured is then each governing body basically adopts a resolution to pay them back, and we're the middleman. So you basically are paying one of those communities. And it's divided by the percentage of the funding formula that you're paying. So right now you are paying Whitefish Bay and Bayside some money every year. And that debt expires, there's 2 issuances, one I believe is in 2022 and one is in 2024. The long-range plan indicated that we could, if the municipalities authorized it, extend the debt for an additional 20 years, which is the has been the practice that communities have done as a 20-year bond issuance, to the 7 municipalities for the same, about the same payment as you're paying now into our debt service fund. So you're paying off Whitefish Bay and Bayside. So in other words, we would extend that debt service out, but the payments would remain relatively the same. And do a project, this project, and a project in Whitefish Bay, a smaller project, and a smaller project in the Glendale Station too. It's about $6 million worth of work.
Okay, so in the end result of the game, we can just, rather than dropping off and not having to make that payment anymore, because the debt will be paid for existing projects, we would just continue making that payment at the same level, hopefully, and then do would you think that like electricity or, I mean, like the ongoing, is there other ongoing expenses that are also factored into that, and are they all just kind of a wash?
So if we built, let's just walk a scenario, not to say this will happen. If we purchased that property, the North Shore Fire Department purchased the property from Shorewood, we either remodel, do a major remodel, or tear down the building, depending on what that process all looks like. Then we own the building, we are 100% responsible for utilities and everything else that comes with that. So we, in our budget now, have a utility line item for that building currently, because we pay 50%. So we believe that we would either pay the same or less based on the efficiency of that building.
And has Bayside agreed to, by extending your debt, that they're agreeing to basically float that bond?
So it probably wouldn't be Bayside. It may be, but we have a couple communities that we are talking to that would be interested in working with us on that. Bayside wasn't one of them, just because we don't like to go back to them. Sometimes we like to share the pain and wealth, however you want to look at it. But we do have some interested communities that are in a position to do it, actually sometime right after the first of the year. And that then would tie into back to how you repay them is up to you. If you want to, put it as part of your bond issuance, you could do that. If you wanted to, send the jar around and get change, you could do that. It's just as long. The only commitment you would make is that you would repay them the money.
Which is, and we'd be repaying 17% of
17 point
because that's
whatever
our
percent.
17.5% is what we
But
pay.
it's the same thing, somehow this whole Bayside extension of debt is how we're paying.
So that is, we're working with Ellers, who's your financial advisor too, and that's who we use. And in the long-range planning process, so that's as far as we got, we had them draw out some scenarios that would show how much, what basically our budget was. We know we have about $10 million worth of work. We know we can't, I may not sell that, but I know that here's what it would look like if for about, between the 7 communities, it's about 530-some thousand in annual debt service to repay that. Here's about what it would look like if I extended that out 20 years. And I said, my goal is to keep your payments relatively the same. I mean, it's not going to be exactly on the head, I know, but I'm not going to come back and say, you're at 100,000 more than what you paid last year, or in 2022, and now it's 2023. There is a short-term part of the issue is depending when you start work and then when you have to start paying, because like on a mortgage for a house, you don't pay the first month, or if you're in a construction loan, you may not pay while you're under construction. So there's some timing issues that happen there. Ellers believes that we can work through those, so it's not, hey, you have 2 years where your payment's going to go up and it's going to go back down again.
Trustee Zolder?
A couple of questions. First, are you expressing any preference, or is the North Shore Fire Department expressing a preference as to location and process and path?
Sure. So as far as location, with limited options for location.
Hang on, before you answer that question.
Yeah.
Forget about all of the restrictions.
Yep.
If you were just to have a map of Shorewood and say you are putting a new fire station in place, where would be the ideal place?
Remember, it's not a map of Shorewood, it's a map of the North Shore.
A map of the North Shore with the understanding that you're putting in a fire station.
It would probably be north of Capitol, but south of Glendale Avenue. Somewhere along Oakland is a really good spot. Now that's a tough spot because you have significant development there and to put a non-taxable properties is
Okay. So outside of that, thinking now, it's remodel, replace, same location, different location with all the restrictions, right?
Yeah. From my preference, I think this building has some significant infrastructure issues that you are never going to get beyond. I mean, it has, there's water coming off the walls in the basement, there's black soot in the HVAC system. It's almost 90,000 square feet. We don't need 19,000 square feet. And you're going to heat a building that's you can never get ahead of the energy efficiency issues there. So strictly from that standpoint, a newer building, if I got to say a new building would be our preference, we understand there is value to looking at options, though. I'm not just closing that off and saying no. But I think the cost that, well, I know from our consultant's evaluation, the cost to remodel that building, even to our 9,000 square foot needs, is going to exceed building a new building. So in other words, you look at that building, we're going to make it work for the fire department. You're going to pay more than it is to tear it down. So.
I was curious about the colors on the map in the package.
Sure.
I didn't know what those meant.
Yeah. So good question, because after I put it in there, after I sent it to Rebecca, I thought. But the green is so this is a mapping program we have that looks at response times. So the green is that you are in a target. The red, that block right there, that meant there was no data to evaluate. So in other words, it uses historical data. The darker